Hi, I'm Christine from Valid. I want to talk about what is funded by the NDIS and what is not funded. I won't go through all the 54 pages of the price guide. If you want detailed information, it's better that you Google NDIS price guide and it should come up with the price guide for you, and then you can get a lot more details. But I'm just going to go through some of the broad things that the NDIS funds and why it will fund things and what it won't fund. So firstly, what does the NDIS fund? Well, the NDIS talks about it will fund what is reasonable and necessary for a participant to reach their goals. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means something very different for every individual. And that's what we've all got to remember. Every decision about what each participant in the NDIS gets is an individual decision because it's based on their individual circumstances, it's based on their individual needs, and importantly, on what are their life goals, what are the goals they want to achieve that the NDIS can assist them with. And so everybody will have a different amount of money. There isn't levels that you get given and everyone with the same type of disability gets the same amount. No, it's all done on an individual basis. So just because someone else gets something doesn't mean to say you will get it, because if they have put a reasonable and necessary argument to the NDIS about why they need something, then that's why they have got it. So, reasonable and necessary is about, are we asking for something that is needed for the person? So, for example, someone might want to find a job. Now, one person who wants to find a job may have some literacy problems and they need to learn a bit more in terms of reading, and in particular maybe using a computer and literacy on the computer. So the NDIS for them might assist them by funding some skill training to do some courses or that will assist them to get a job later on. For someone else, they might need an attendant carer in order to get a job, and that the NDIS could fund an attendant carer to go with them to their workplace and support them with their role and provide personal care where that's required. So with the same goal, we're going to have very different things funded. So you can just take that principle of reasonable and necessary and apply it to your situation. But they'll always want you to have some reasons for why you're asking for something. So you may say, I need physiotherapy and I need it every 2 weeks. Okay? Why do you need that? Why is that reasonable and necessary? Well, it might be that the participant needs physio regularly to maintain the strength in their muscles so that they don't fall, or so that they're able to continue to transfer from their wheelchair onto a bed or into the car by themselves. So that's a good reason, and it is a reasonable and necessary thing for someone to maintain their mobility. So that's the type of principle that we're talking about. And also with your goals, try to make sure the goals are life goals. The NDIS doesn't want a service goal. So you don't make the goal to get 5 days a week of day program. No, that's not a life goal. A life goal might be, like my daughter, is to go and do things in the community with her friends that she enjoys. And that could be by herself, one-on-one, or it might be with a group. So it's a life goal. Okay, so what types of things do they fund? The NDIS might fund a whole range of things, and as I said, I can't go through the whole list, but broadly speaking, they fund workers that assist people with everyday things, whether that's in their home, it may be in the community, or it may be at their workplace, or it may be that they're volunteering somewhere and they need some support with that. And also, obviously, they fund workers to provide group programs at day services. They also might fund a one-on-one worker to assist someone to go to a community house, for example, to do a short course. They also fund equipment and aids. Now, what lots of people don't know is that the statewide equipment program, SWEP for short, transfers to the NDIS. So you must remember to tell them about your equipment, because when you go to get your wheelchair fixed and you ring SWEP, they will say, do you have money in your package to pay us for fixing it? And it's a problem if you don't, because you might have to end up paying for it. But if you might need some new equipment, the NDIS will want an assessment. Firstly, to recommend what's suitable, and from there they could fund a huge range of aids and equipment. So it's everything from vehicle modifications through to the shower chair in the shower, communication devices. It could be also the tips of the white canes people use. It might be orthotics that are specially made, or specially made orthotic shoes. What they fund is huge. They also fund continence aids, and do remember that the continence aids program that people currently getting as adults, or for children, the continence subsidy does transfer to the NDIS, and you will need to make sure you tell them that you have that continence subsidy now, so that they can replace it in your NDIS package. And they do provide really good packages of continence products through the scheme. The other thing that they fund is support for big life goals, such as we've already talked about getting a job, but also it might be that someone wants to stay living in their own home, but because things have changed with their impairment or their disability, they need a bit more support. So the NDIS could fund, if they see it's reasonable and necessary, additional staff support or other supports for a person to stay living in their own home. Also, it could be that someone wants to move out of home into their own place, either by themselves or with some friends. The NDIS funds a whole transition process to look at what's needed in order to do that, what needs to be put in place, where are we going to get the staff from, and then at the end of the day, when people do shift out, the appropriate level of staffing to support the person to live in their independent living. So there are a lot of other things that the NDIS funds, but that's broadly some of the main categories that most people are interested in. The next thing I want to talk about is, because people often don't know what the NDIS doesn't fund. So I want to talk about what the NDIS does not fund. The NDIS does not fund the things that other government departments fund. So the NDIS is not here to replace other government departments. It is here for disability supports only. So it will not replace Medicare funding for the 5 GP therapy visits that you can get through Medicare. It's not going to pay for your medications, because that is funded through the health department. It's not going to pay for your hospital visit, because that's a health department and also Medicare funded. It doesn't fund integration aids in schools for children who are needing education, because the education department funds that. And in some cases, it will not fund some supports in TAFE, but there are some it will fund. So it's best to talk to them about those things. And the same with universities. The NDIS also won't fund personal expenses. So your pension or your income from your job is there to pay for your personal expenses, your food, your rent, and your clothes, etc. So the NDIS does not help with funding those things usually. And the other thing that it's important to remember, because everyone asks this question, can my family, who are my unpaid carer, get paid as a worker? The NDIS will not fund family to be workers because there is so many unpaid carers out there, it's opening what they would call the Pandora's box. But there are some exceptions to that. Where someone is living in a rural, remote area or for cultural reasons. So you should always raise that with your planner and talk to them about what your needs are, because maybe they do decide it's reasonable and necessary. So I would encourage you to always raise your issues, ask them about things, even if you think they won't fund it. And if you'd like more information about what the NDIS funds and doesn't fund, then the ndis.gov.au has lots of fact sheets about that. It has videos on what's reasonable and necessary, explaining that. But also the NDIS price guide is there if you'd like to actually see all the items that are funded. Thanks for listening.